send out the, agenda? I don't have a copy of it.
Yeah, I'll share it to you real quick. You actually do.
Oh, I do?
Yeah, but it's.
Tell me
I
where to
just
find it.
sent it to you again.
Oh, okay.
Alright. Alright,
We'll call the meeting to order. It's 5:33 on Tuesday, November 18th. And we'll start with a roll call.
Atkins?
Here.
Aldridge? Here. Campbell?
Here.
Hannah? Noted as absent. And Pruitt?
Here. And then we'll jump right in to voting items. The first thing is September minutes, excuse me. Oh, you don't know mine? And looking over.
Hey, Susan, can you speak up a little bit? I can't hear you at all.
Yes, can you hear me better now?
Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
sorry about that. Okay, looking over the minutes from September, do I have anybody who will make a motion to approve the minutes as they stand for September?
I'll motion. Can.
And do I have anyone that will second?
Second.
Bobby? Please note, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any opposed? Okay, note that the minutes passed as stand for September. And then next thing on the agenda is the budget, or excuse me, approval of September and October financials.
And Steph, do you wanna, can you present that, put it up, and then I will turn this so that you can see everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's gonna kind of be all in one, the budget and the financials. Let me share my screen really quick.
And I can talk, so Steph has been, shout out Steph, she and Robin from PSRC have been working like crazy, to kind of get our financials actually, where everything, I don't know how to describe it, where everything is actually in sync. There was a lot of coding issues before, the way things were budgeted, and then they were getting coded differently than the budget, and they were showing up in different buckets. And a lot of that's just, there was just a lot of different people that were kind of disconnected from the process. Natalie wasn't necessarily connected to what was happening on the ground. Steph was doing the coding. Steph and Robin, over the last really month, 2 months, have really been working on streamlining everything, getting everything where it's actually reflecting the way things are being coded. So as soon as something is, coded as, I don't know, 6,900, there's a 6,900 line item in the budget that it's coming out, that it's basically gonna come out of. And not like, oh, well, we got that 6,900, but actually it comes out of the 6,700 fund, because we don't have a 6,900 fund in the budget, and so it's actually gonna be reflective. It's gonna be good for a lot of reasons. Number one, it's given us a lot more insight, Steph especially, into exactly, where we stand at any given time. It's also let her to kind of dig in and find some things out that she didn't know and that none of us knew. And then it's also eventually, APSRC has a really powerful financial tool called CFAM. That is, it pulls everything from eFinance and basically allows us to kind of on the go print up reports like this, to compare ourselves to other districts, to compare ourselves to other districts of our size, to really get just a lot of kind of really in-depth information. And before, because everything was kind of coded weird and we didn't really understand exactly the coding versus that, it was kind of like just bad data whenever we were looking at it. We didn't really know what we were looking at whenever we looked at CFAM. We think as we go through the whole year of this, and we get everything, our budget coded properly for next year, all this kind of year of everything getting put into the right buckets, and then next year I think we'll be able to really have some powerful financial analysis tools that'll actually be of use. It's going to take a little while for everything to get properly aligned, I think, with eFinance, and it's going to be kind of an ongoing process, which Steph will talk a little bit about. But yeah, I'm excited where we're going. It's definitely a progress and steps in the right direction. And Steph, I will turn it over to you now.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, like Boyd was saying, honestly, Natalie's done a great job, and any of you who know her or worked with her, she's been with us for about 5 or 6 years. She was wonderful, but she wasn't boots on the ground, and so she didn't have an in-depth understanding of some of our expenditures and some of our revenue and things like that. She also always presented a very basic budget, a very basic board financials with the basic understanding that she had. This has been it's been a huge challenge for me, but it has also been so enlightening. And I'm just so excited to be able to present something that probably looks a little familiar to past budgets and past financials. However, I've really dug in and gotten more in depth and more transparency. And so I'm just gonna go through really quick. You all should have access to this. And I'm just gonna step through it a little bit. This summary tab here on this budget worksheet. Did you ask a question? I'm sorry.
No, that was the ear call.
Oh, okay. Okay, so summary tab. If you'll just look at summary tab, I have it, I'm sharing my screen so that you can see it. The summary tab on column D, this is the budget that the board approved. I believe this was August or September. This is the budget that Natalie gave to us, that we presented to you, that was approved. Okay? You see here, it's got, our revenues, it's got our expenditures, and the number one thing about this budget is that it is zeroed out. So that is what we had approved in September. Now, if I open this up here, I've hidden this little column, it's a lot of it's notes for me, but I want you to see these notes as well. These are the notes that I took based on what Natalie entered into eFinance. What she entered in eFinance was sent to the state. That is the budget that was you approved, but she sent this to the state. So this is our state budget. There were just several little things where she put into eFinance, she actually put 30,000 in this line item. And I'm sure she grouped a whole bunch of different line items together to make that happen. But her thought process wasn't line item, let's make sure that there's knowledge of every single thing that's being expended. So if you are interested in that and you want to look at some of those items, these are the things that she put into eFinance. So there's going to be a difference. It still zeroes out. What she put in eFinance put us into a zero, a budget that has been zeroed out. One of the things that she put in, we had a shortfall of about $200,000. So we approved that we would get 200, and we've done this in years past, this isn't new. But in order to have a zeroed out budget, we had to put in here grants and contributions of $203,000 so that we were at zero with our budget. Okay, so if you're interested in any of these notes, feel free to take a look at them.
I need Jeremy and Napoleon for pickup.
This is the budget that we approved, but is slightly different in eFinance. I'm gonna hide those because what I'm gonna show you next is, this is the revised budget. This is the budget that I and Robin, Boyd promised you back in September, where we were gonna go in and we were gonna make adjustments and create an actual budget that is reflective of the actual revenue and the actual expenditure. If you look really quickly at this one that we approved, you notice that she doesn't have revenue listed for federal. We get federal funds every year, facility funds, although we may talk about that later, but federal facility funds, child nutrition funds, these funds were not included in her budget. The revised budget, I've included every single revenue that we anticipate getting for the whole year. And that includes our state foundation, which is the same as what she included, our state and categorical, which means like our, if you look at this other tab over here, that includes our ESSA, our professional development. They've all been allotted to us already for the year. Okay, so I included those, which she never did before. She never really included the federal revenue, but she did include federal expenditures. So the budget was always just off. It wasn't exactly right. So if you look at this revised budget, I've included 100,000 in grants and contributions from community or outside sources, organizations. It is less than what she included, but it's because we don't need $203,000. We will need probably about 75,000. I've included the 100,000 because that is what I sent to Hope Lending. Hope Lending requested a 5-year projection, a budget, financials, and a 5-year projection, and this is what I included in that 5-year projection. So I'm including it here. I'm going to make these adjustments. So we're talking revenue here. Every year we get funding from UAFS for our WOTC program. They actually pay us for mileage because they do not provide transportation for our students. We do, so they pay us mileage, and it's usually around $7,000 to $10,000. Child nutrition was never included before in revenue, but it was included, some of it was included in expenditures. I've included it all here. This is what we anticipate getting from child nutrition. This line item right here, this cell, 94,000, is connected to the child nutrition tab. If you go to the child nutrition tab, this is what we're expecting to make in child nutrition this year. So feel free to take a look at this later. I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys wanted to give me a call and we could talk about it as well, but I'm just giving you kind of a basic overall look at what our revenues are. If you go down to our expenditures, she has us budgeted for 1.2 million in salaries. Natalie has always included salaries only that we pay out of operating. We have a salary tab over here. The salary tab has all of our salaries listed here. Part of those salaries, we pay out of other funds. We pay out of Title I, we pay out of ESSA, we pay out of ELL, or child nutrition. She was only including the ones that we pay out of operating. Because she was also not including the revenue from federal or child nutrition, it makes sense that she would only include operating column. But I have included everything. This is exactly what it would cost us to run all of the teachers, all of the staff, all of the support staff, everything. I've included that in our revised budget. Because we are going to get federal and state funding to help cover some of those costs, okay? And the benefits are the same. In the past, we have not included stipends and benefits, but they need to be included. They are considered salary, so we need to make sure that we include those. And child nutrition, I've created a new row here so that we include all of child nutrition expenditures. These are all their expenditures, minus the salaries and benefits because they're included up here. And then if you these are all line item things. This is what we spend our money on. All of these items right here. She may have put in a random or a guesstimated amount for some of her budget for e-finance and what was approved. These are actual expenditures from last year. What I have included is what we spent last year, and some of it I've increased slightly because of utilities and things like that are gonna increase. So this revised budget is going to be more accurate. For example, land and buildings, this is our loan payment. I'm gonna go ahead and hide this one. This is our loan payment. Right now, it's a little over $19,000
I think Chad
a
and
year.
Trayvon voted for
It
pickup.
is.
Chad and Trayvon.
For 12 months, this is what it will cost us for our payment currently. It will likely increase. This is a number that I'm sure will increase once we get Hope Lending and we get our new loan payment set up. But for now, this is what our payment is. I'm not certain where she got this number of 163 that we approved, but it is not correct. And so this is a more accurate, transparent number. Just random different things. So all these things that we spend money on, I have included. I actually went in and changed these items right here. These were all coded to 66100, this general supplies. Everything that we got that was supplies was coded to 66100. I have created new codes based on codes that are approved by the Department of Education. These are all new codes, and we will actually classify all supplies where they came from. So we have a better understanding, and we're able to actually budget for those different supplies. This is a game changer right here just for me, having to learn to recode things. I mean, every expenditure that we have, every single thing that we spend or we buy has a 16-digit budget code and then this 5-digit account code. It's very complicated, it's very intricate, but this is gonna help us understand where we're spending our money. How much are we spending on building and maintenance supplies? The same goes for, the same will go for professional services. Currently, she had it set up for, all building, HVAC, plumbing, any of those professional services were all lumped in with like speech therapy. So I have taken it and broken it down to what the expenditures really are. And so these are all the changes. I am going to start including, instead of two spreadsheets, one that shows the budget and the budget worksheet, and then the other spreadsheet that is the financials for the month, I'm gonna include them all right here in the same spreadsheet. So it's all together and nobody cares to look at another spreadsheet. So this is through July 31st. These are our revenues that we received. These are the expenditures that we received. And this is like our total revenue against expenditures. I know most people don't really care about this. I know I didn't when I was a stay-at-home mom for 20 years and did all of our family finances. I was like, oh, this is so nightmare. But if this is something that you're interested in knowing and you want the transparency, you want to know exactly where the money's going, it's all going to be right here on this front page. The next tab is our 5-year projection. This is what I sent to Hope Lending. It's going to have to be adjusted at stomachs. This is not state-based, so it's just what we told them. Hey, we're going to make sure that we are a balanced budget, and this is where we anticipate our budget to go to. Building, currently, and we're hoping to get working on this. Currently, our facility funding has been paused, and so we're not receiving that facility funding. It was scheduled to be about $111,000 this year, and we're working on trying to get that back. But right now we have expenditures in our building fund, but we don't have funding from the state for our facilities yet. Federal funding, if you're interested at all in seeing any of this, and I don't have the formulas yet, for all of it, but this is our revenue only. In the past, this tab has had revenue, and then it has had expenditures. I included only our federal funding and our revenue, and it goes back to the summary page for us. So you can look at all of these items and you can see exactly what, we're getting money for. You'll see that the budget that was put into eFinance by, Natalie does not include our safety grant. We got a $29,000 safety grant, which is great. We're gonna use it for a resource officer, and we're super grateful for that. But it wasn't included in the eFinance budget to the state. I've included it in our revised budget. Child nutrition, I'm gonna keep this updated with literally to the penny expenditures and revenue for child nutrition. Most of you know, a lot of you have been with us for several years, our child nutrition department has not made any money at all. As a matter of fact, we've been in the hole quite a bit every year. So this is an effort to work towards getting us in the black with child nutrition so that we don't have to use operating funds to cover our negative in child nutrition. So this is a tab for that. This will give you an idea of all of our salaries, who all we have hired, what their positions are, and how much that totals up. These are our stipends that our teachers each receive. And that, I mean, basically, some of this stuff, I told you, I need to go in and recode. Let's look at, for example, this one right here. This coding is for like HVAC, plumbing, whatever. It got coded to this 63900, which it needs to be coded to something different. Once I'm able to go in and recode, I've got to go in and do these journal entries and recode all of these expenditures. That's 330% of our budget. It will not have that on there anymore. And I will update this every month. You'll see every month, you'll see where I've been able to recode things. It goes to the right bucket of money, and our percentages are gonna look a lot better. We're supposed to be around 30 to 34% of our budget in most of these. So that gives you an idea. At the end of October, which is the end of the first quarter, we should be around 30 to 30% of our budget in most of these. There's a few of them where adjustments need to be made, but that gives you an idea of where we're supposed to be. The only other thing I was hesitant to talk about this tab, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it. This actually is just kind of my own mind madness, basically, this tab is, and I took a lot of notes. Every month, I send out a board report. The board report basically takes this column, which is our funds. These are our fund numbers. So we have operating. I've deleted some of these funds numbers only because there was nothing in them or they weren't important to talk about. The ones I kept are ones that we have a balance. We have a balance in each of these that some of them have been sitting there for a very long time. It's money that we have that we could have been using. I didn't know, so, we didn't know that this is money we could be using. For example, do any of you remember Dwight Curry?
Yes.
Dwight Curry came in. He was a wonderful, wonderful community sponsor for us for a few years, donating money to help programs. He was great. Well, one year he donated $20,000 for a summer drama program, a theater program, and they put on this beautiful show, and it was really great. And we used 10,000 of that money that he gave us. We still have 10,000 and it's been sitting there for like 3 or 4 years. And You know, and I'm just I'm learning every day, and I'm so grateful that I have this opportunity to really understand it now. But that money is earmarked for the drama club, but we don't have a drama club, and we don't have a theater department anymore. So when speaking with APSRC, Robin at APSRC, we talked about what these funds could be used for that are just sitting there, and she said, use it for the art department. Theater is an art, it is an arts, it's in the arts department. So that money, that $10,000 can be we can recode all of the, art department has about $5,000 allotted to them every year for art supplies. I can use that $10,000 to pay for their art supplies this year. Then we're not using our operating funds to do it. So this is a blessing, this is a huge blessing to have this column right here of monies. Some of them are restricted, like the Curry Drama Grant should be restricted to just art programs. Some of them are not. We have received growth funding in the last several years. We've received $189,000 in growth funding. When we were increasing in enrollment, they would give us this money. It's just been sitting there. We can't transfer it anywhere, but when speaking with Robin and APSRC, it is unrestricted. Meaning, we can use it for whatever. We can use it for salaries. We can use it for class supplies. We can use it for internship program. We can use it for whatever we want, really, as long as it deals with students and salary or salaries. But it's unrestricted, and it's all this money that's just sitting there that we haven't used at all. So if we use this money, for example, we would not be having to dip into our operating money to pay for whatever we decide to use that money for. There are some things like RMAC. We have so much money in RMAC. We have several years of just built up money that last year and the year before, I was really good at just nurse supplies. We're using it for our, Allison is our registered nurse, our full-time nurse on campus. Half of her salary is paid out of RMAC. And we're looking into every opportunity. Child nutrition, if we can find ways to use some of this RMAC funding into child nutrition, it'll be like a miracle for us. Like, it'll be so wonderful to be able to use the RMAC funding in some way, some small way even, for our child nutrition department that struggles. We can use it. We have currently a PE and health teacher. She's also one of our full-time art teachers. We can use RMAC funding for part of her salary. So there again, part of her salary that we're paying out of operating, we can use RMAC, so we're not using our operating funds. Anyway, there's just a list of these things here. This youth apprenticeship, this was a program that we used. I don't know, Boyd, if you remember exactly what it was. It was not JROTC, but it was something similar, I believe, several years ago. And we got funding for it, and this was long before I did anything with the budget or paying out anything, like long before that. It has been sitting there for about 6 years.
I need Joshua Tate for pickup. Joshua Tate.
So this $3,600, I have looked into what allowable expenses we can use that for. We can use it for our student transportation. We currently spend about $10,000 a year on our transit passes for our students. This is a pot of money that I can now classify to our student transportation. This is a blessing. This is like finding money to pay for that, so.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I mean, it's, a lot of this, I mean, some of like RMAC will continue to get his revenue.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just like, it's not a finite amount of money. Some of this is finite, but it's coming, this kind of like uncovering of this is coming at a really good time. Because we are, and we'll get into 5-year projections a little bit, but we are kind of in a bit of a crunch time right now. And so and if you look up there, the first two that are over in column, those first two, that's like 1.4 million basically. And that's been our reserve, in the past, and that's just coming like, oh, we have this money set back. I mean, our reserve doesn't have to be that much. Now, I think that it's a good idea for us to run as big of a reserve as we can right now and to keep, and obviously there's gonna be, as we move into, our situation with Hope Lenders, there's gonna be a requirement that we have so much in reserve, but it's nowhere near that amount, right? And so, I mean, we wanna keep and be, you know, as close to just operating in the black without tapping into this stuff as we can, but right now, where we're at, it's a good resource to have, and to kind of have uncovered this and figure out what's there.
So these.
Well, and also
revenue-
going,
Before you jump
Oh.
in, the revenue that you're listed here, I mean, it's great that you find that these are balance sheet accounts. How does this reflect in our bank account, the actual cash available?
Yeah, it's,
so, I mean, I can send you our monthly, like our bank statements for sure. Right now, we have 1.3 or $1.4 thousand in our
Million.
cash account in our
Million.
bank. 1.3
million or thousand?
million, I'm sorry.
So where are these other funds at? And so, because the first two line items account for about 1.4 million. Where are the remaining 45,000 or how 450?
Well, and then I can work on getting some more details on that and share those with you in the future. I'm pretty sure it's probably, we've been working in the negative, I guess you could say. You know, there have been months or years where maybe our expenditures are above our revenue.
Mhm.
And so maybe that's where kind of the discrepancy is. I don't know for sure, and I can't just tell you that for sure, but I'm definitely willing to look into those details and getting that information for you.
Yeah.
And before we commit.
But like
to
Boyd
using-
said, these are fixed, this is money that we've already received, okay?
But I guess where's it?
Um,
Yeah. Okay.
But if we don't actually have the money, that's where.
Right. Right.
This money, I mean, this is money that we have received.
But it's not cash on hand.
Some of it is, I mean,
Right.
I'm guessing over the years, we've had to use some of it for whatever, it just hadn't been categorized to there. But like, for example, like RMAC, we will continue, we got $11,000 last month for RMAC. So this is money that's sitting there. If we can code expenditures to some of these categories, then we're not having to use our actual operating funds from our budget. And then we're still getting the revenue from federal, and we're getting federal and state funding that is just extra that we can use for other things. One thing I just wanted to mention, and I'm happy to answer any more questions you might have, and I'm happy to get more information for you from somebody else if I don't know, but I want to highlight these two. I kept them in here. It's not money we can spend, but I wanted to just tell you guys, man, Jessie, one of our advisors, she is a rock star. She's raising money, man. Even the last 2 years, she knew that her advisees were going to be seniors, you know, in a couple of years, whatever. She has been doing art, window painting and face painting at, farmer's market. She's done all these things to raise money so that these seniors can have an amazing senior trip and other things for their senior year. But that's an incredible amount of money for a class to have raised. I just wanted to highlight them because I think that's incredible. You know, almost $6,000 worth of fundraising that they have done just on their own, just for the senior class. But and that's in our board report that comes out in our board report. You get to see every month, and you can see where they stand for sure. Some of this just needs to be moved around. Yearbook, we don't use this fund anymore. We don't use this one anymore. I can reclassify PE supplies or whatever to this. These are small amounts that we can use in other ways, but, yeah, like this student transportation, driver's salary, and this one up here as well. That's gonna be a wonderful, opportunity for us to be able to not use operating funds and be able to use those for money that's just sitting there, which is great.
Well, the transportation driver salary, is that reoccurring every year? The 8,400?
Yeah. This one right here, and, even the youth apprenticeship. Yeah, of course it is, and right, currently, all of their salary is being paid out of our ESSA funds, our state and categorical funds. So if this year I was able to use this, $10,000 or $12,000 for a, salary, that would be great, because it will help us this year. Obviously, next year we would just use ESSA, but we can use those ESSA funds for something else, curriculum or any other item that we might need with our ESSA funds that are restricted. So it's kind of moving money around, but it's a real blessing, because these monies have been just sitting here forever and we've not used them. We just need to use them and code them.
Incredible work, great job.
Thank you.
Yeah. For me personally, it's a lot easier to read it and understand it, so I appreciate that. Maybe we do a little bit more of a deep dive, kind of chiming in back to what Keenan had mentioned and seeing, out of these funds, and I know you'll get to it in time, like where that, if we have 1.3 million in our bank account right now, where this other 100 is for.
Maybe 600 almost.
Yeah. And I think it's great, you've identified where we can use some of those funds. My biggest concern at this point is some more deep dive, further investigation, what have you. Do we really have that money? Where is it physically located? Before we
Yeah,
start.
We do have it. We do have it, and in this first tab, this summary, I'll try and update this as well every month. It's cash balance at the beginning of the month, cash balance at the end of the month. And so this will go along every month. I mean, every month we're getting revenue, every month. Every month we're expending that revenue. It's about keeping our expenditures lower or right at what revenue we're making. Then all these beginning funds that I just mentioned to you, they're all still there then.
What's that total?
Because we're at $1.3 million cash, July 1.
450.
Where do you see
But that total on the final page is around 1.9 million. So, right? Or is it, I can't see.
No, these numbers don't
Okay.
actually show the accurate amount. I can delete that.
Right.
Because some of these
Right.
are, we can't use. We
Yeah.
can't use some of these funds for anything.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, there's lagging with the ebb and flow of cash. I know there's some lagging.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's an ebb and flow of cash is basically how it works, and that's what this first tab summary is also the board's financials. It's the separate one that we used to send out. This is gonna include every month you'll get to see, this is what our cash was at the beginning of the month, this is what our cash is at the end of the month.
It's right there.
Awesome.
It's 1.30.
So those other account numbers.
And did you say the beginning funds was included in the summary? Or was
Yeah,
it
it's
not?
on the summary, this page that I'm showing right now, I've just highlighted, line 94, for, let's say, July 31st, that's at the beginning of the month, we have this much on our bank statement, like our actual bank statement. And then at the end of the month, this is what it looked like,
$9,000 difference.
because of our expenditures that we
Do we have-
had.
See, I think it has some other accounts.
So where that other 100 would be.
If you take your beginning funds, or what I like to call your beg funds, because that's the way you labeled it, is that's where we begged for money and somebody gave us some stuff funds, is for other, conversation purposes. But if you add those numbers together, it's 1.4, and then your summary sheet at the front says 1.3, so roughly, we're talking about $100 grand. And I know it's not that big of a deal, except for, it is a huge deal. Do we have $100,000 in some account somewhere that's not being reflected, or has it been misappropriated, misused, is it gone? Where is it actually at before we look at how we're gonna spend some of these? I think we've gotta start with all of this, but I think we've gotta keep going. And again, I said incredible work, tremendous job. Now we've gotta take this, and what I would like for us to do is to, whether we have to have a
I need
special,
K-Paul and K-Tavius for pickup, K-Paul and K-Tavius.
whether we have to have a special meeting, or whether we have time to do it again at our next meeting. But I think that we need to really comprehend and understand all of these new codes, these new numbers, exactly what's coming in and what's going out. And I think we need to revise our budget, if for no other purpose, for our internal uses. And that's gonna go along with something that I wanna talk about later, about our enrollment numbers and where we actually are, and our 5-year projections, and what's happening because of the LEARNS Act.
Right, yeah, absolutely. I 100% I'm behind you on that one. And as I learn, I hope you'll be patient with me. I've really done a lot of work trying to learn all of this and be more understanding of it. And I've been going to trainings, I've been going to conferences, and Robin at APSRC is an incredible resource for me. And she's been, every week we meet for about 2 hours on Wednesday mornings, and she's been helping walk me through all this. Those are great questions, and definitely stuff that I'm interested in figuring out as well, and getting deep down, like you said.
Awesome.
Yeah, great job, Steph. Hey, this revised budget, does it get resubmitted back to the state?
No, we don't have to
Okay.
resubmit anything back to the state. And that revised budget, I mean, and yes, we can revisit it and reapprove it, but I mean, the revised budget it's basically the approved budget, but actually coded correctly. And with the actual numbers that were, so it's really not the approved budget, I guess. We can dive back into that.
Yeah.
Hey, and Susan, your question, this revised budget and all these other numbers, it's kind of a working budget or working spreadsheet that we get to use. The board gets to use it, I get to use it, and it's more of a transparency thing. At the end of the day, at the end of the year, the Department of Education wants a balanced budget.
Yeah.
And they're not gonna go in, they're not gonna go into any of these details at all. They don't actually care. What they care about is that they gave us, let's say the state gave us $188,000 in ESSA funds, and did we use them for ESSA? Did we code them properly? At the end of the year, we might have some left over. We are allowed to carry over 15 to 20% of that. So at the end of the year, they don't care where all of these items are listed. That's not their problem. It's our problem. It's our job to make sure that we're spending it where we're supposed to be spending it, and that we have a balanced budget at the end of the year.
Do we actually have a audit done annually?
Yeah, we do. We have a private auditor that does our audit, and then we have to submit. And I don't know how much longer we'll get away with, well, I shouldn't say get away with. We've always had a private audit, and was encouraged by APSRC. At some point, it's possible the state will say you need to have a full state audit.
Well, I'm very concerned, how did we pass a private audit, seeing this improper coding and where the numbers are and how much.
Well, like Steph said, that it doesn't matter as long as you spent, they allotted you this much in ESSA funds and you spent at least all, you didn't hold roll over more than 10 to 15%. And then everything was cut, I mean, that you actually like spend on allowable expenses for ESSA. That's what they're more concerned about.
That's
Did
what
you,
they-
out of this bucket, was it spent on allowable things? So out of ESSA money, that you didn't pay my full salary out of ESSA money, right? Or that you only paid, you know, ESSA money is being used for like extra things basically, and sort of academic supplementation, tutoring, things like that, and that you did that. And so basically you have all these different departments, same thing with SPED, Title I, all those things, and all these funds are coming from, and as long as, if it's passing their muster, then it doesn't really throw up any flags.
Yeah, and the, Bobby, to
And
your
we can
question.
we have multiple audits that we can show you, you can look at,
I
we've
have,
had
I
no
have all of
findings
the
on any of them.
audit. One other thing I wanted to say, too about the audit is that, at the end of the year, let's say, they gave us $188,000 in ESSA and we spent, $200,000. Part of the audit is finding that and saying, okay, you owe us, $30,000, or $22,000 that you have to pay back. And that's part of the auditing. The audits have been done by a private auditor. I think we could probably use a private auditor from now on, or forever, I don't know. I think once in a while, they're gonna want you to do a government audit, which is a pain in the booty. But for now, the thing is, you don't pay for a government audit. It's free. And we pay $16,000 or $17,000 a year to have a private audit done. And it's been approved and cleared every year, like we haven't had any problems.
And approved and cleared through our lenders we've
Yeah.
we've had to submit those
Yeah.
audits
We
to city builders as well as to Hope.
And it
Those are
doesn't
good
sound like
questions,
it was
I can't wait to dig in more into that as well.
condensed.
Yeah, that's really, the biggest thing we've had in the past is with the coding was, yes, that there's 15 different codes that could all fall underneath this one bucket, right? And so she might have used 3 of those codes only and combined 5 of them into this one, 6 of them into this thing, and then we're going more granular
Yeah.
in the way that we're
Yeah.
looking at it now versus kind of she was using much bigger buckets.
Well, this was a great job, Steph. And then
Thank you.
one of the main things I'm hearing out of the end of it is originally we thought we had $200,000 in the red, but now it's looking more like 75,000. And then maybe if we were able, through grants and what was the other, I can't remember where it's looking.
Grants and donations.
Grant and donation
Community
contributions, yeah.
contributions,
We can even get that further down. You put 100,000 in there, but you were saying it's more like 75. So
Yeah,
that,
I think it could be less than that. I'm looking at the
If you
bottom
go back
line
down to the
here.
bottom line, we're,
It's gonna be close to 100,000, but every year this is on the budget though. Every year, this is where, we've line item grants and contributions to cover the difference. And I think what's happened is every year, we might be a little bit over in our expenditures, but we have cut expenditures, salaries. How many years have we had people leaving at semester? And so that has been a savings in our salaries. So it ends up working out every year, but I'm wondering if that cash balance that you're asking about, Bobby, it's like, when you're a little over in expenditures, will you tap into that cash balance?
yeah.
You're not making us more than what you're expending, so you're gonna have to tap into that, so maybe but I can go back and look at our cash balances for the last several years if you want, but it seems to have always been kind of around this amount, so
yeah.
we're doing something right.
Well, we missed the opportunity to give one of our teachers a bonus for.
That's right.
For great work.
Yeah,
And if we have this cash balance
That's
sitting
right.
there, this is a way to reward her for
Right.
that. And make that up and not have to go
Exactly.
and beg somebody else or however we get it, but we can go ahead and make that right with her. Not only does that incentivize her, but hopefully the other teachers as well. I know it's only $1,000, but at the same time, $3,000. But $3,000 is, you know, she worked hard for that, she needs to be rewarded for it.
Yeah. Yeah, we can definitely do that. So that's, I'm so glad you mentioned that, but in that last tab, when I was talking about the beginning funds, that growth and declining enrollment, all of that money right there, we can use it for a salary, we can use it for a stipend.
That's just, not that much.
So that is money that we could use to, you know, support this teacher that you're talking about, but yeah, it's right there.
Can we do that, Boyd?
I think we can, once we go through and figure out exactly what is on hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's my only concern, is, you know, figuring out like,
okay.
All right.
Wow,
so
that's
yes,
a
a
lot.
That bonus maybe,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
that would be.
Awesome, thank you, Steph.
Thank you, Steph,
Yeah,
that
no
was
problem.
great. That actually answered a lot of questions.
I am gonna have to step out.
Yep,
If you have any other questions, let me know.
awesome, thank you, Steph.
Thanks.
So from there, does anybody, no, the stuff's gone, but is there any more questions about that?
She answered my question.
I know, she answered a lot, and this does look really good. Do you, what do you
Yeah.
think?
I think where you're going is, do we approve the September and October financials,
That's my
or
next.
do we want to study this some more before we actually approve something? I don't know, we've been approving it in the past with something that was
Hanging,
a giant snowball, and now this is individual snowflakes,
Yeah,
so.
I think we approve it. I mean, we've got more detail today than we've ever had.
ever had,
Yeah.
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 I'm good with that, we just need to revisit what our revised budget is.
Yeah, I mean,
I think we find out how much money we've got actually in reserves, and how it's allocated, and where the money is physically located, and what we can use and not use.
Do you think that we could do that and report on that, put that on the
For sure.
agenda for December?
For sure.
Okay. Do I have anybody that will make a motion to approve September and October financials?
I'll make a motion.
And I will second it. This is Susan Britt. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thanks. Any opposed? Okay, note that the motion to approve the financials for September and October stand, and we'll revisit in December, about just the kind of more of the breakdown of those, I guess you call them beginning funds, bed funds.
We're
Okay.
paying for money.
Approval of medication policy is the next on our voting items.
This is one of those that just comes up periodically that, you know, someone attends a PD, about some of their job duties that had foisted onto them, and they're trying to be conscientious like Allison is about her nursing duties. And they're like, oh, and she talks about the nurses like, did you approve the new medication policy this year that you have to have? And so basically that's all this is, it's to add to our policy manual, as part of the nurse, and this is just the generic one that everybody's using. But you've gotta have sort of a medicine administration policy. I think this also allows us, for kids to have OTC medications, like that they can get without having to have like their parent brief. So like we can keep Advil on hand. If they have something signed by their parent saying that we can dispense Advil to them, then we can do that. Versus them having to bring my Advil in today because I can't hold medicine on my person, even though it's Advil, it's just that whole thing. So anyway, that's, but this is just basically it's all the, you know, as you can see, it's got all the legal pieces on it, but yeah, this is just a medication policy. So simple compared to the, last item.
Yeah.
Motion to accept.
I'll second.
Okay, note that Bobby motions to approve it, second by Keenan. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, note that the motion to approve medication policy passes. The next on our agenda is, item number 3, informational items, starting with the loan process.
Okay, loan process, we are basically in a holding pattern because the state has not, and this is almost going to talk about our charter renewal, the state has still not gotten their business together, on getting our renewal done. And so that's, but there is a meeting this Friday that is to discuss that. It's gonna just get the ball rolling, it's about a 45-minute meeting, I already know what they're gonna talk about, because I've been on 3 other meetings where they talked about it. They're gonna say, here's the process, here's what you need to start, working on. And it's gonna be a long process, not by law, I mean, it's gonna happen this year, obviously, within the school year, but I mean, it's probably gonna be March, April, and before we get our renewal. And that's
Is this just us, or is this?
This is everybody.
That's
Yeah,
everybody.
well, I should say, anybody that was at A through C school, they're basically going to rubber stamp them, if your letter goes to A through the C. If you're a D or an F school, then you're going to have to go through the process. The process, and they've said this to civic builders, they've said this to Hope, they won't put it in writing, but there is no intention of like, oh, you may not get renewed. That's not part of it. I mean, we will definitely, because of our letter grade, be on an improvement, but that's okay. I'm pretty confident that we're doing a lot of work around that right now, but on the letter grade, so anyway, I feel good about the direction we're moving in, for letter grade. But that's sort of where that process of a loan, civic builders, our original lenders, they are now, going back, because that loan was supposed to expire in mid-December. They're going back and giving us more runway, basically. So we'll continue with civic builders until our charter renewal happens, then hope we'll move forward with hopefully taking a loan. Yeah. So everything, I mean, it's not ideal, none of it's our fault, really. Because even if we were an A through a C school, we still wouldn't be on the timeline that we originally projected and that the state had originally told us, as well as told, Civic and Hope whenever we inquired about it as well. So, I mean, it's not, it's not ideal, but everybody wants to make it happen, and it's gonna happen. It's just a matter of getting everything in a row. One of the things, though, we've been talking about with them is the 5-year, and Bobby, you alluded to this as well. We're budgeted on, 211 kids, here, and, hold on, 1, 2, 3, okay, there we go. Hold on, there's something weird going on here.
She has a decimal point, like, go back.
Gotcha.
You see
No,
what it is?
no, it's not though, this is not. Steph, we go from 2,423,000 to just 214,000, that's not right.
She's off, though.
Yeah.
She had to roll off.
Okay. Alright.
Yeah,
This is not correct, this should be like 2,200,000, I think it's, anyway. She was messing with
It's
me earlier.
$8,100 approximately times the number of students.
Yeah, so, but basically, what ends up happening is, I can just talk about it. We need to cut about, for next year's budget, we already know where we're funded at, we need to cut about $300,000 out of the budget.
so I've been thinking a lot about that lately, and I'm thinking like, let's start now. Like, maybe that's that, study session we start holding and start making plans on how we do that.
Yep.
Just so when we roll around August next year, we already have our game
Yeah.
plan.
So my plan right now, is tomorrow at our staff meeting, I'm gonna go through what we're projected for next year, and explain the shortfall that we face for next year. And this isn't like a maybe shortfall, this is a shortfall.
It
What
is,
what
yeah.
was our numbers, October 15th, what were our numbers?
It's 163, I think.
And that's what we-
And that's what
that's what we-
yeah.
For next year.
For next year, we're up to 175 right now, by the way. And we've got about 10, we've got about 10 that are ready to come in, but we aren't letting them come in yet. Because they have to wait till semester. So, we're gonna lose some too, so, it's the ebb and flow. But we have increased numbers, which I knew we would, at quarter, whenever everybody's progress reports came out for their virtual school they were in, then all of a sudden, then things aren't working and they are trying to get them back in school. But anyway, so around $300,000 is where our shortfall is. My plan is to present this to staff tomorrow, just kind of let them sit with that and not talk about all the repercussions. At this point, I think people just need to kind of have the problem and decision scenario and have transparency around that. And then we're going to start having discussions around at the end of, right before we go to break, and talk a little bit about if you're planning on attrition, you know, you're doing a service to everybody to let us know now, because that allows us to better plan on where the positions we're naturally gonna lose versus what are the positions that we're gonna have to cut. And so that to kind of, before we go to break, let everybody kind of sit with that. Hopefully we come back from break and then we'll start and we can probably get together and talk about that. I've met with leadership team and we've kind of talked about it. We've run staffing models of how lean we can go if we have to. And we can make it work as far as that 300,000. Yeah, it's not ideal, but we can make it work.
Okay, so if we're at 163 on the magic day of October 15th, but we finished the year at around 175, is there
You get growth, that's what those growth funds, and so right now, what we're gonna get this year, because we've gone down, is decline, no, I'm sorry, that's not right. We will get declining enrollment funds because we're funded off this year. The previous year, we were funded higher, right, and so we'll get declining enrollment funds. If we then grow a lot, right, then it wouldn't get until the next year. So, but that's, you know, but you know, if we can end the year, and we saw some of our reserves, right? If we can end the year at a really high point on enrollment and feel really confident going into next year that we're gonna, you know, continue, and we're gonna be enrolled at 200 the next year, then I'm a little more willing to still be conservative, but to not be so drastic in that we're paying $300,000 in salaries, you know? And I think that's something we're gonna have to kind of look at, is, because what I don't want, I mean, this is, in talking to another leader about it, you know, the staff is meeting and say, well, what can we do? You know, we need to recruit, but if recruiting doesn't really help us, you know, then there's no motivational factor there, right? So, I mean, we've got to figure out, like, if we can meet this, then it reduces the amount that we do. And we do have those, you know, we have funds in reserve, so if we need a bridge to get through for next year, we could look at, you know, using some of that money as a bridge. But right now, this is what we're looking at.
So the revenue that you have here, does that include some of these additional funds that Steph has passed?
Yeah, no, none of this has anything to do with that cash reserve. Yeah, I don't know, this is killing me right now, because this is not right. I don't know if there's a missing 2 in there.
No, it's that formula, it's adding something up and it's using a blank instead of, because when I clicked on this in Excel before I came this afternoon, and those numbers were correct. It was $8,160 or $8,106 or something like that, times the number of students. So it wasn't, what I was looking at wasn't dropped off, so I'm not sure what's
So
happening.
this is not where that's not, anyway.
That's frustrating.
Anyway, but that, we'll get this corrected tomorrow, I don't know, it was correct. But yeah, so that's kind of, you know.
Well, one of the things that I gathered from, attending one of the school board meetings for continuing education, whatever you wanna call that, development.
Did they have detail or not to set the alarm? I don't know if anybody is gonna set it, but.
We never do, because
Okay,
the cleaners do.
because the cleaners do, all right, I'll set the alarm.
85% of the school districts in the state, public school districts, charters, what have you, that are public school districts, saw a decrease in enrollment.
Yes.
85%. The only one in our region that increased enrollment was Hackett. And that's an interesting story. I know some of what that is. They're just up and coming, they're rural, and it's athletic driven. Everybody is fleeing Greenwood to go to Hackett to get a better opportunity, pretty interesting. There's quite a few students coming out of Fort Smith going back now. But anyway, regardless, I've been thinking a little bit, or a lot, and then I talked briefly the other day with Griffin about this to some degree, and we need to have further conversation. I think we should have some study sessions about this as well, not official board meetings, but some study sessions. I don't think the solution is recruitment.
Right.
It doesn't matter how much money we spend to try to get students in here, it's the retention of the students, but even at the retention of the students, it's not gonna make any difference for the number of student decrease that we're seeing, and it's going statewide, across the board. Parents are keeping their kids at home and putting money in their pocket, and a few of them are going and taking that money and sending their kids to private school. And the private schools are increasing their tuition to go along with that, and paying their teachers more, and the whole purpose of the LEARNS Act was to make a competitive system to get the public schools to step up their game and compete against the private schools. And if they couldn't do it, then why should we keep a child from going where they wanna go if they can get the best education possible regardless of their income level? It's not working out that way. Until we get that changed, if that's what happens, until it's changed at the legislative level, we just have to deal with it. And I think the realistic thing to do is to have some hard conversations with ourselves about, let's ignore this 211 student number. That was great. That's unrealistic. It's never gonna happen.
Right.
It's not going to happen in the foreseeable future.
Right.
So let's quit focusing on that.
Mhm.
Let's find out it's not just cutting teacher salaries. It's the biggest impact is to cut the teacher salary. If you have 211 students budgeted, you only had 160 students in attendance, now that number's 175. That's the difference in a teacher. 160 to 175, 15 students, it's 2/3 of a teacher. The reality is, it's one teacher. Well, we can't at semester cut 4 teachers.
Right.
That's the way to make it balanced, though. So, is there a way, how do we go about determining what our absolute minimum overhead is? Ignore teacher salaries. If we have 160 to 180 students, that range, let's just call it an average of 170, our utility bills are fixed.
Right. Almost everything's fixed.
Exactly, so find out what that number is, and then use that number as our constant, and our variable as our teachers. And as much as I don't wanna let anybody go, the reality is, is how do we cut costs? If it's not teachers, can we shut down a wing of the school? You know, I just spitballing out here, but, you know, those are the budget things that we're in.
Right.
It's either teachers or it's fixed costs.
Right. Yep,
I will say, I do think we are overstaffed.
we are, absolutely.
I think there are classes that have only a handful of students, and
Mhm.
that shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
I also know that we're going to lose a teacher. I know Sissy is
Mhm.
going to be leaving, and she's business.
Mhm.
Will we replace that, or can anybody?
I don't really wanna get into staffing,
Okay.
model,
Sure,
like
sure,
talking about specifics, but yes.
But I mean, like.
We have to keep our business, so with the way that the value add program works right now, you have to have your career pathways, you have to. We have to have 3 career pathways, and we have to have kids graduating on those career pathways in order to not have Fs. I mean, that's essential. And so, you know, yes, we've gotta have a career pathway, but there's lots of ways to do that besides just having a teacher that's solely dedicated to that.
Sure, yeah,
You know, so
absolutely.
you can have
Yeah.
multiple teacher, or people teaching, and we used to have the people taught 3 or 4 different classes.
Yeah,
You know, and but we've looked at the position model, not staffing model, we looked at, here's the positions we need,
yeah.
and, we can
Who
make it
can
work.
fill that?
Yes.
It sounds to me like, and what we learned last time is our funding is fixed for this year, we're
Right.
getting this money, we don't have to make these cuts.
I'll talk about that in a second, but yeah.
Okay. Well, it sounds to me like we don't have to make any major decisions
Correct,
this year.
correct. Well,
Well,
we've gotta make decisions setting us up for next year.
Right.
You know, in the spring, which is, like I said, I'm slow, instead of just coming, I wanna kinda let everybody see what the scenario is, and I think to your point, really getting down and digging down into what's the fixed cost, where's the variables. I mean, I kinda know, in playing with the budget, that there are some variable costs, but a lot of it is just fixed, to your point. I mean, and there may be a place, okay, we can rebid that, okay, so it's $5,000 here, you know, or whatever, $2,000 here. And that's a lot of things that are kind of variable, they're small budget items, you know, so, yeah, if you start looking at your big budgets of where we're spending $60,000, where we're spending $220,000, well, rent, that's a fixed cost, you know, or, you know, our loan payments. And so, anyway, I mean, I think it's worth talking about. And I think it's worth like trying to dig into. Where I hope to be by March is with a pretty good idea of who's gonna be back the next year. And then have that team really start looking at our educational model, and how to make things work as far as within that sort of leaner environment, how to make things work, where are the gaps that we're gonna create with, you know, with this, and how do we fill those gaps? We can get super innovative, we have lots of ideas already floating around, but it's really about enlisting that team, to help with that process.
is it possible to do that at this point, at semester? And I know that we've got budget right now, we've got money for 211 students. The reality is that we only have 175. So that's 36 students that we are overstaffed for.
Is anybody projected the semester that you know of?
No, we had one person that we were looking at, and we were gonna cut, but we're not going to. Because we have an F, we're gonna use them for specifically some really targeted test prep, with those kids, because our lowest 25%, or you basically they kind of 3 times, your lowest kids do. They get down for your achievement, you get a gross score just based on everybody's gross score, and then your lowest 25%, you get more points for those kids on their gross scores as well. So, I mean, they have people that if you can get that lowest 25%, growing significantly, then, I mean, they have schools that are lower achieving than we are, that I've heard they say, but because they've really hit that lower 25%, that they're getting, you know, C's and B's for their letter grade, even though their actual achievement's lower than ours. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. I mean, no, I'm not entertaining like we're losing 4 people at semester. This is all happening at the end of the year. We're retooling for next year.
I think that's probably better for morale.
Yes, and I debated, you know, if we got rid of this certain staff member, right? And the reason is because we didn't really have the position that she had. We have somebody coming that's a special ed person that it has to be filled for special ed. And so we debated on the savings of $25,000, which is about half of the salary. Is that worth the morale? And to your point, losing 4 people a semester, I mean, or getting people and telling people like, hey, at semester, all you are gonna be gone next year, and you guys are gonna get to stay. I mean, I don't know how much performance you get from anybody at that point, you know? And so really to me, it's more about us, you know, everybody kind of wrapping their heads around the problem, us trying to find solutions. Worst case scenario, come March, we start really having conversations about who, you know, and maybe the solution the staff says, you know what, we wanna recruit, we're about to hit the ground and go crazy recruiting, and to your point, I don't know that there's, you know, I don't know. But maybe they end up getting.
I would love to be proved.
Right, and maybe 50 people, maybe we, you know, the staff just wraps around it.
But that
and
would
50
benefit
people.
us the next year.
It would, but I think we could justify
We'll get
the
the
tapping
growth.
into, yes,
Yes.
and we would get growth funds or, you know, or we would get funds to help with that, yes.
And looking at our big funds that under growth, we have about 190,000.
But once again, I don't wanna go into that too much right now, because I'm not confident
Okay,
of like,
Sure.
that being on hand,
I understand. Okay,
you know. Yes, I understand on a ledger sheet,
yeah, I
you know,
understand.
that it looks like funds that weren't spent, but then where
Yeah,
the funds?
yeah, and that's what we're gonna try to deep dive into
Right.
and figure out.
So going back to, talking about the state and setting schools up for success or not. As you, I think I talked to you guys about if, you know, regardless of our letter grade, we were supposed to have the option. I told you guys we were probably gonna have an F. That regardless of our letter grade, that we would have the option of picking our previous year's letter grade, was what we had been told.
Which
They
was a
did,
D.
which was a D, correct. And they then said, actually, we're only gonna let the schools that demonstrated growth in their letter grade take their previous letter grade if they want to. Well, why would anybody want to, if they grew their letter grade, why would they wanna do that, right? And so that made no sense to me, or they had to demonstrate some areas of growth, whatever, we didn't qualify. Basically, they let, I mean, yeah, if you were a D or an F, they didn't let you take your own letter grade. So that then kicked in, a thing that I was not aware of, and I don't think most people are aware of either. That negated our growth funding for this year. So you find out your letter grade in October, and they tell you, oh, by the way, we're not gonna give you growth funding now this year. Even though you've already set your budget, you've hired your teachers, you've set your master schedule, you've done this. So that was $100,000, about $110,000 that the state's just basically withholding. Now, that being said, John Bacon is currently working with us, and he started ESTEM, and you know, he's now working with APSRC, he's on the charter panel, or the charter authorizing panel, and they have a meeting Thursday, and he's going to evidently raise a stink about it, because he's not, there's a few schools that are being affected by it right now, and he says it doesn't make sense that you would, now if you want to number one, it doesn't make sense, we're already getting penalized because we have an F, that's a penalty. To then financially also, a school that's already clearly having some issues, right, to then financially also penalize them, and within the same year, right, and if they want to penalize us and say, hey, next year we're gonna withhold your
Growth.
thing, no, not growth funding, it's your, facilities funding, that's one thing. But they did it after our budget's already set, after we've already, you know, received it, and the law says schools may have their facility funding held. It doesn't even say they have to have their facilities funding. So John Bacon's gonna make the argument that they are intentionally hurting schools and hurting kids, because it's in no kid's best interest for us to say, if we didn't have cash reserves to do this, or if we couldn't redo our budget, I mean, you are talking about, for some schools would say like, well, we're gonna reduce our staff by 2 right now, or 3. And then how does that serve kids well by then having to redo their master schedule, whatever, at this point in the year. So anyway, that's a whole other thing, but that was a pretty infuriating thing that got sprung on us in October. And that being said, we've had Bacon and myself, I've talked to Jay about it, talked to a few different people about it, that kind of, whether they can do anything or not, I don't know. But we've let our dissatisfaction be known. He's talked to Daryl Smith, who's now in charge of the charter and school choice, and Daryl agreed with him in principle, but then kind of backtracked. Freddie Scott agreed with him in principle and kind of backtracked. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see where we end up. I think we will end up at the end of the day probably getting the money back. So we'll see. Because it just doesn't make sense.
Okay. Interesting. One of the concerns that I had attending the continuing seminar that I did, was the whole attitude in the room. And it was public schools. It was half of Fort Smith School Board was there, all of Ozark was there, all of Hackett was there.
Did you go to the one at County Line or
I did,
Springdale?
I went to one at County Line, but it was the one, not last week, the one
Mm-hmm.
the first 4 weeks ago. And it was the attitude in the room, and we didn't discuss this, it's just my observation. They're pissed off, and they're mad at Governor Huckabee, and they're Sanders, and they're just gonna, things will change when she's not in office. There's no discussion being had about what do we have to do to improve.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole intent,
Mm-hmm.
is make a competitive system and incentivize the private schools, the home schools, give every child the same learning opportunity, school choice. And addressing the F or the D or the C. And I think it's all bullshit. The whole grade thing,
Right.
you're testing. We are being penalized because, lack of better terms, we are taking the kids that don't fit in.
Right.
The kids that get kicked
Right.
out, the kids that have no other options. They're so far behind by the time we get them, it doesn't matter what we do, we're gonna constantly have an F. Except for, we don't need to accept that.
Right, right. Yep.
And so.
Well, and I actually asked them to run the numbers on if every one of our kids, because we can't, achievement is what it is, we get the kids we get, right? But if every one of our kids met or exceeded growth, which is our goal for this year, what would our letter grade be, right? So if every one of our, if we got all the points, because we had 100% of our kids meet or exceed growth, then you could take a random scattering of like, really high performing districts, they have this many that even exceed growth by this many points, right? So you run that analysis, and I'm just curious where our letter grade would be if we did that. Because to your point, if we did that and met that, are we a B school, A school, or still a D school? You know, if we have that, and no one has taken me up on that offer to do that yet. But I mean, that's our goal, you know. But I think that to your point, I think one of the things that we see right now is that the charter schools, the school choice system, right, and that charter schools are a part of, the private schools are a part of, is the way the metrics has been set, or the game that's been set up to be, is I'm a parent who's dissatisfied with my child's school district. I do not feel that they're in a bad school district, so therefore there's an option that's a good option for them, okay? And that good option is presumably like you have a smart kid, they're not being recognized there, so we're gonna send them to a school that really cultivates that intelligence, right? And maximizes that potential, okay? That's not what Future School is in that way. Future School is a dropout recovery right now. You know, it is a group of kids who have failed at their normal school. They're not succeeding at their normal school, so I need to find a place I'm gonna succeed even higher, right? They're traumatized by their normal schools. They're, they are not necessarily succeeding at the normal schools for whatever reason. Could be behavioral, could be academic, could be whatever it is, could be just learned behaviors, whatever it is. And so then they're coming here as their last ditch effort, right? The game is not set up to recognize that. There are no metrics around that that show that you are succeeding in your mission, if that's what you're doing with the school, And so what's our option? Well, all we can do is grow the kids we have and improve what we're doing around that, and hope the rest falls in place, And so that's what we're doing. But I just don't think that we'll ever get sort of the recognition, And the thing is, from the powers that be that support school choice, they're more than willing to throw us to the wolves, because they're looking for examples of whenever there's a low performing charter school, we get rid of it. We can't do that with normal schools, right? Whenever there's a low school, one of these school choice schools, we police our own, and if they're low performing and they're an F, and they said by the time 2030, the goal is there will be no charter schools that are below a C. And if there are, then you won't be in existence. Because they want to show that, no, we're setting this up for everybody to rise to the top. And if you're not rising to the top, you're gone. So that's sort of my point of why I want to know what our grade would be, our goal of everybody growing, will we be a C? Or is it 2030 going to be a year that regardless of what a good job that we've done, that we get thrown to the wolves? There's actually on vouchers and all that, there was a pretty big article that came out in the Difference about that, about their demanding revisions to the way that homeschool vouchers can be spent. And the legislators are, yeah.
I mean, there's no accountability in
Right.
homeschool,
Right.
especially when a kid is a sophomore or a junior. By the time the state has spent $7,500, $7,700, whatever it is, to mom and dad, and they figure out that the kid never was taught anything, or was down the street working at Walmart or McDonald's or wherever they were, what are you gonna do to the parents?
Right.
the kids already,
The big sticking point is it being used on travel ball. So it's being used for AAU travel, AAU team fees, and, you know, for homeschool kids.
wow,
Yeah,
I can see that
yeah,
very easily, but I wouldn't have ever thought of it.
yeah.
Myself.
Yeah.
Well, so the other thing to add to that is do we play offense or do we play defense?
Right.
And I think we're gonna have to do both. We're gonna have to play a hell of a lot of defense.
Mhm.
But also going back to this, well, let's not ignore the recruiting side of it. Future School, as the way it was explained to me, was started to allow a student that maybe wasn't college bound, was more
Mhm.
tech driven or entrepreneurial driven,
Mhm.
that didn't need necessarily the college bound degree, but could build their curriculum around what they were interested in.
Mhm.
And we've lost that,
Yeah,
all because we are the receiving grounds for those that don't succeed for
Right.
whatever various reasons,
Mhm.
whether it be grades, whether it be personality, whether it be gender or gender bias or whatever. We've now developed that reputation,
Mhm.
like it or not, of who we are. I was asking students, high school age students that I see around, what do you think of Future School, what is Future School, and we have the reputation, we're the LGBTQ community.
Mhm.
That's where everybody goes, that doesn't fit in at Southside, that doesn't fit in at Northside, that they come here and they can be accepted. Right or wrong,
Yep.
every child needs to be loved and have a place to be welcome. But ultimately, we've got to fight to keep our doors open.
Mhm.
And if we're not succeeding, even with our own metrics, then what are we doing?
Yeah.
So, is there something that we can identify? And I've been working internally with the medical college to try to identify some kind of program. Is
Mhm.
it nurse coding? Is it x-ray technician, assistant of some sort? Is there something, go back to the original entrepreneurial
Mhm.
focus that Fort Smith, Future School Fort Smith had or has, and try to bring that back
Mhm.
and develop a curriculum around and use that as a recruiting tool. Is hey, do you want to be a welder? Let's become a welding yard.
Right.
We also, since Future School started, now there's the invent of Peak.
Mhm.
Even though we send kids to Peak and we participate in that, that's a hell of a program. And it is direct competition, and it is the public school taking away what Future School started off being.
Mhm.
And so,
Yeah.
are we gonna become that recovery school,
Mhm.
that home for wayward toys, the old Christmas story? Or can we do both?
Right. And I think that's where the work we are doing around internship and being thought leaders around internships, that's huge. I mean, we're at, to your point of welding, that we have, kids are getting scholarships to American Welding Laboratories. They're interning, we have 4 kids interning there right now, and they'll offer scholarships there. You know, we've got those, and it's just keep on building those out. To your point, the medical community, and that's one of our pathways, is medical, you know, and so first 2 years have to be classes, next 2 years can be internships, practicums, whatever, in-kind experiences like that. So we're building out those 2 things, but I think that is the push right now, and that's, and you know, to your point, hey, I will gladly welcome that. What I don't wanna be known as, oh, that's where all the kids that are drug dealers, that are gang members, that are violent, that are, you know, all that. That's the one that's hard to get over, because that becomes self-fulfilling.
Yeah, and I'm not hearing that.
Right,
I mean,
and that-
personally,
yeah.
whenever I've had those conversations
Yeah.
with people, it's the, well, you're taking,
Yeah.
I gotta be careful what I say, you're taking the rejects.
Right.
The ones that don't fit in.
Right.
And
Well, I mean, I talk about all the time, a lot of the kids that have either been bullied by peers or they've been bullied by the school system. And we get, those are 2 of our big groups. Kids have been bullied by the school system, they've been in detention all their lives, and ISS and all that, and they're tired of being at the ALE, and they're looking for something else, and some of those fit in great. Then we also have kids that have been bullied by their peers, and you're getting anxiety by their peers, anxious about all that, and being in a big environment for whatever that reason may be. Maybe it's some differentiality, or maybe it's whatever it is, and, maybe they have the anxiety disorder, but we get, those are the two groups that we get a lot of.
You know what I always say, and I've seen it, cause I've walked the halls and I've been a part from day one.
Yeah.
Is that I see kids come through these doors that were in the bigger schools and they fell through the cracks,
Yeah.
or they weren't seen. And they come here and they're seen.
Yeah.
And they're also, I've seen them where their talents are seen.
And they're bossing the leaders.
They do,
Yeah.
because they get overshadowed in the bigger schools, but they can come here and they're seen, and the teachers here with the lower school numbers are able to really, and the advisories, and all of the extra support they get from their teachers, because teachers here aren't just teachers, they are everything to them. They are their counselors, they're their mentors, they're their teachers, they're their friends, and they come in and they support them. And that's what I always kind of remind people is that.
Well, and the other thing I'll say about the F is we've had we've had more consultants this year than ever. We're part of 4 different initiatives, we've got consultants in here all the time. And also people that come in for whatever reason, I'll say, I'll walk around, this isn't an F school. I've been in F schools. I've been in lots of districts where there's an F school. This isn't it. They're like, the kids are smiling, people are happy, people are getting along. Like, if you're in an F school, generally, it is not one nonstop crisis after the next, right? And it's just like, they're like, we wouldn't even be able to have this meeting that we're having right now, because we would have just like a constant revolving door of whether it's angry parents, or angry kids, or angry teachers, or whatever it is, and they're like, this isn't, and they're like, and that's what we're getting to the point of, the metrics that are making us succeed are not recognized by the system,
So, improvement basis, are we really failing?
I mean, yes, because once again, 100%, we want 100% of our 9th and 10th graders to score provision, or to grow, to meet or exceed their expected growth. If they don't grow on this test, then yeah, I think we failed. Now if we have 100, and 100% is lofty, but if we have, even if we far exceed the state growth, average growth score, right, then I think we can point to, well, we're doing better, than the majority of the state with our kids' growth. We're just getting them when they're further behind. But I mean, I think we're succeeding in a lot of, I don't think it's either or. We're succeeding in a lot of ways,